Welcome to Sec 1 Geography, Deforestation, Causes and Effects. Here is the thing about deforestation. Everyone knows it is bad, but most students cannot explain why in geographical terms with the mechanism spelled out. They say the forest is destroyed and then run out of words. This video changes that. We are going to teach you exactly why each cause happens, exactly how each effect works, and why the consequences do not stay local. Why a forest being burned in Brazil or Borneo affects rainfall, climate, and air quality in places far away, including Singapore. Every explanation will be built for the exam. Let us go. First, what is deforestation? Deforestation is the permanent removal of a large area of forest, primarily for human use of the land or the trees themselves. The key word is permanent. This is not selective logging, where some trees are taken and the rest is left to recover. Deforestation clears everything, and once a tropical rainforest is gone, it rarely comes back to anything like its original form. The scale is difficult to comprehend. Approximately 10 million hectares of tropical forest are lost every year globally. To put that in perspective, the total area of Singapore is around 728 square kilometers. 10 million hectares is roughly 13 times the area of Singapore, lost every single year. 3 mistakes that cost students marks on this topic. Mistake 1. Vague causes. People cut down trees to make money is not a cause. It is a description so broad it says nothing. The examiner needs a specific cause: commercial logging, agricultural expansion, mining or settlement and infrastructure. Name it. Mistake 2. Stating an effect without explaining the mechanism. Deforestation causes soil erosion. That is only the first half of the answer. You must explain how, what specifically happens to the soil when trees are removed, and why rain then washes it away. Mistake 3. Giving only one water cycle effect for a 3-mark question. WAQ2 is worth 3 marks. That means 3 distinct mechanisms. 1 sentence is 1 mark, not 3. Here is what the exam asks on this topic. WAQ1, 2 marks, name 2 causes of deforestation. WAQ2, 3 marks, explain how deforestation affects the water cycle. WAQ3, 2 marks, explain why deforestation leads to soil erosion. 7 marks in total. The roadmap, Chapter 1, covers 4 causes of deforestation. Chapter 2 covers 5 effects. Practice pause. 1 for WAQ2. Chapter 3 teaches the feedback loop. Chapter 4 covers 2 case studies. Practice pause, 2 for WAQ3. Then, mistakes, recap, and your next steps. Chapter 1. 4 causes of deforestation, commercial logging, agricultural expansion, mining, and settlement and infrastructure. Cause 1. Commercial logging. Trees are felled for valuable hardwood timber, mahogany, teak, and meranti, which is sold for construction, furniture, flooring, and paper production. Both legal and illegal logging occur in tropical countries, and illegal logging is particularly widespread because enforcement is expensive and difficult in remote forested regions. But the most damaging aspect of commercial logging is often not the trees cut down directly, it is the roads. Logging requires roads built deep into the forest to bring in machinery and carry out the timber. Once those roads exist, they open previously inaccessible areas to everything else: more logging, farming, settlement. A single logging road is a gateway for all the other causes of deforestation to follow. Cause 2. Agricultural expansion, the single largest driver of deforestation globally. It takes 3 main forms. Cattle ranching dominates in the Amazon. Approximately 80% of cleared Amazon land is converted to cattle pasture. Brazil is one of the world's largest beef exporters. When the thin rainforest soil loses fertility, which happens within a few years, ranchers simply clear more forest rather than restore the exhausted land. Palm oil dominates in Borneo and Southeast Asia. Oil palm thrives in equatorial conditions, and demand for palm oil from food manufacturers globally has driven massive clearing of lowland rainforest in Indonesia and Malaysia. And soya farming, Brazil is the world's largest soya producer, exporting vast quantities to feed livestock in Europe and Asia. Even if you never eat soya directly, if you eat meat fed on soya, you are part of the supply chain that drives Amazon deforestation. Cause 3. Mining. Forest is cleared to access minerals and fossil fuels beneath the ground. In the Amazon, gold, iron ore, and bauxite deposits attract large-scale industrial operations and, separately, thousands of illegal small-scale gold miners, a practice known as garimpo. The garimpo miners use mercury to separate gold from sediment, and that mercury contaminates rivers across enormous distances, poisoning fish and water supplies for indigenous communities downstream. But the secondary effects of mining are often worse than the mine itself. Roads built for access open areas to further clearing. Worker settlements follow. Processing facilities spread. Toxic waste moves through rivers. Mining is not just a hole in the ground, it is an entry point into untouched forest. Cause 4. Settlement and infrastructure. Roads, towns, hydroelectric dams, and pipelines built in forested regions. The key concept here is what we can call the access multiplier. Once a road penetrates the forest, for any reason, everything else follows. Loggers move in, farmers follow to clear and plant, settlers build homes, more roads branch off. A named example is the Trans-Amazon Highway in Brazil. Over 4,000 kilometers of road that was built in the 1970s to open the Amazon interior to colonization, and which became the spine of an expanding network of clearing. Another example is the Belo Monte Dam, one of the world's largest hydroelectric projects built in the Amazon basin, which permanently flooded vast areas of forest and disrupted the entire river ecosystem. In both Brazil and Indonesia, government resettlement programs historically treated forest land as empty, ignoring indigenous communities who had lived there for generations. Chapter 2. 5 effects of deforestation: biodiversity loss, disrupted water cycle, soil erosion, climate change through carbon release, and displacement of indigenous peoples. Effect 1. Biodiversity loss. The mechanism is straightforward, but the consequences are catastrophic. Habitats are destroyed. Species lose their food sources, their shelter, and their breeding sites. Populations decline. Species go extinct. The rainforest holds approximately 50% of the world's species in only 6% of the land, as we established in Video 10. Many species are endemic. They exist in one specific forest patch and nowhere else on Earth. Clear that patch, and the species is gone permanently. What makes this particularly chilling is that many species go extinct before science has even discovered them. We will never know what medicines, what ecological functions, what evolutionary branches were lost. And biodiversity loss is irreversible. No amount of replanting recreates the full web of interactions that took millions of years to evolve. Effect 2. Disrupted water cycle. And this is the 3-mark question, so listen carefully to all 3 mechanisms. First, deforestation removes trees, greatly reducing transpiration. The release of water vapor from plants into the atmosphere. Less transpiration means less moisture enters the local water cycle, so less rainfall occurs in the region. In the Amazon, this matters enormously, what scientists call flying rivers. Massive flows of moisture carried westward by winds from the Amazon's own trees are weakened by deforestation. Less transpiration, less rainfall. Second mechanism, without canopy to intercept rain and without roots to absorb water slowly, rainfall hits bare ground at full force. Water flows rapidly across the surface rather than soaking in. Surface runoff increases significantly, rivers rise quickly, and flood risk in surrounding areas increases. Third, over the longer term, reduced transpiration decreases regional rainfall as less atmospheric moisture is available to condense and fall as precipitation. The remaining forest dries out, becomes more vulnerable to fire, and that connects directly to the feedback loop in Chapter 3. Effect 3. Soil erosion. And this is the 2-mark question. 2 steps, 2 marks. Step 1. Tree roots hold soil particles together and anchor the thin topsoil in place. The leaf canopy buffers the impact of raindrops before they hit the ground. Without trees, bare soil is exposed directly to heavy equatorial rainfall. And remember from Video 11, the topsoil in a rainforest is only 5 to 10 centimeters deep. That thin layer is all there is. Step 2. Heavy equatorial rainfall hits the bare soil directly, dislodges soil particles, and washes the topsoil away as surface runoff. What remains is infertile, compacted subsoil, which cannot support crops, cannot support forest regeneration, and leaves the land permanently unproductive. This then forces farmers to clear even more forest to find new fertile land. Soil erosion leads directly back to more deforestation. Effect 4. Climate change through carbon release. Living trees store carbon through photosynthesis. This process is called carbon sequestration. The Amazon alone stores an estimated 150 to 200 billion tons of carbon in its trees, roots, and soil. When trees are burned, slash and burn clearing, that stored carbon is released immediately into the atmosphere as carbon dioxide. When cleared trees are left to rot, the same carbon is released more slowly. The impact has two dimensions. First, massive carbon release accelerates the greenhouse effect and global warming. Second, the loss of sequestration capacity. Fewer trees exist to absorb future carbon dioxide emissions from the rest of the world. In Borneo, the effect is compounded by peat swamp forests, which store carbon in deep peat layers up to 20 meters thick, accumulated over thousands of years. When those peat forests are burned, the carbon of millennia is released in a matter of weeks. This is why Indonesia ranks as one of the world's largest carbon emitters in high fire years. Effect 5. Displacement of indigenous peoples. This is the human face of deforestation. Over 300 indigenous groups live in the Amazon. Dayak communities live in Borneo. These are communities whose cultures, food, medicine, and identities are tied directly to the forest. When the forest is cleared, they lose their land, their ancestral territories seized or destroyed without legal process. They lose their food sources, the forest plants and animals they have depended on for generations. They lose access to medicine. Approximately 25% of modern medicines derive from rainforest plants, and indigenous communities hold generations of knowledge about their medicinal uses. They lose their cultural identity, ceremonies, languages, and ways of life that cannot be transplanted to a city resettlement. This happens through illegal land grabs by ranchers and corporations, and through government programs that treat forested land as empty, ignoring the communities already there. Deforestation is not just an environmental issue, it is a human rights issue. Practice. Pause 1. Pause the video now. WAQ2 3 marks. Explain how deforestation affects the water cycle. This question is worth 3 marks, which means you need 3 distinct mechanisms. Not 3 sentences about the same mechanism, 3 different processes. Write down all 3: transpiration and moisture reduction, surface runoff and flooding, and long-term regional drying. When you have written your full answer, unpause for the model answer. Here is the model answer for WAQ2. Mark 1. Deforestation removes trees, greatly reducing transpiration, the release of water vapor from plants, so less moisture enters the local water cycle and less rainfall occurs in the region. Mark 2. Without tree canopy to intercept rainfall and roots to absorb water, rain hits bare ground directly. Surface runoff increases significantly, causing rivers to rise quickly and increasing flood risk in surrounding areas. Mark 3. Over the longer term. Reduced transpiration decreases regional rainfall as less atmospheric moisture is available to condense and fall as precipitation. The remaining forest dries out and becomes increasingly vulnerable to fire. 3 different mechanisms. 3 marks. Check yours now. Did you explicitly name transpiration in Mark 1? Did you mention both flooding and regional drying as separate mechanisms? If you gave only 1 or 2, identify which one you missed. That is the mark to practice. Chapter 3. The deforestation feedback loop. Why the damage does not just add up linearly, but compounds. The feedback loop in 5 steps. Step 1. Deforestation reduces transpiration. Less moisture enters the local atmosphere. Step 2. Less moisture in the atmosphere means reduced rainfall in the region. Step 3. Reduced rainfall means the remaining forest dries out. Leaf litter and dry vegetation become flammable. Step 4. Dry forest catches fire more easily. Natural lightning strikes or human-set fires that would previously have been contained now spread further through the dry forest, destroying more vegetation and creating further deforestation. Step 5. More deforestation means even less transpiration, which means even less rainfall, which means even drier forest, which means even bigger fires. The cycle accelerates. This is what makes a feedback loop different from a linear chain of effects. It does not just add one consequence to another. Each consequence makes the next one worse and more likely. The problem compounds, and at a certain point, it can become irreversible. That point of irreversibility has a name in the context of the Amazon, the tipping point. Currently, the Amazon has lost approximately 17 to 20% of its original forest cover. Scientists estimate that if 20 to 25% is lost, the Amazon crosses a threshold from which recovery becomes effectively impossible. At that point, transpiration is too reduced to sustain the rainfall needed to keep the forest alive. The Amazon transitions from rainforest to dry savanna, a biome called Cerrado, permanently. That transition would release billions of tons of stored carbon, destroy habitat for 10% of the world's species, and eliminate the flying rivers that bring rainfall to agriculture across South America. And here is the critical point. Once the tipping point is passed, even if all logging and burning stopped tomorrow, the forest would not return, because the rainfall that would be needed to regrow it no longer exists. The forest itself was the source of that rainfall. We are currently at 17 to 20% lost. The tipping point is at 20 to 25. The margin is razor thin. Chapter 4. 2 case studies, the Amazon in Brazil and Borneo in Southeast Asia. These are the 2 named examples you need to be ready for in an exam. Case Study 1. Amazon deforestation in Brazil. The Amazon is the world's largest tropical rainforest, approximately 5.5 million square kilometers across 9 South American countries, with around 60% in Brazil. It contains an estimated 10% of all species on Earth and is sometimes called the lungs of the Earth because of its enormous capacity to absorb carbon dioxide and release oxygen. It stores between 150 and 200 billion tons of carbon. The main causes of Amazon deforestation, cattle ranching, is the single largest driver, accounting for approximately 80% of cleared land. Brazil is a major beef exporter. Soya farming covers vast areas, with most soya exported to feed livestock in Europe and Asia. Commercial logging removes hardwoods and opens roads. Mining, particularly illegal gold mining, contaminates rivers with mercury. Infrastructure projects like the Trans-Amazon Highway and the Belo Monte Dam have opened the interior to wider deforestation. The effects in the Amazon and the current state. In terms of scale, the Amazon has lost approximately 17 to 20% of its original forest cover. In the peak year of 2004, Brazil lost 27,000 square kilometers in a single year, an area larger than Wales, in 12 months. Rates fell significantly after 2004 following government action, including a Protected Areas Act and satellite monitoring, but rose again from 2018 onward following changes in environmental policy. In terms of effects, biodiversity, the jaguar, giant otter, and harpy eagle are all facing population decline. Many Amazon species are found nowhere else. Climate. The carbon storage of 150 to 200 billion tons is under direct threat. Burning accelerates global warming. Water cycle. The flying rivers are weakened, reducing rainfall in southern Brazil and affecting agriculture across the continent. Indigenous peoples. Over 300 indigenous groups face illegal land grabs. And soil. Already thin soils become infertile quickly once cleared, forcing continuous further clearing. Case Study 2. Borneo and palm oil. Palm oil is an edible vegetable oil extracted from the fruit of the oil palm. It is found in approximately 50% of all packaged supermarket products globally: biscuits, bread, chocolate, shampoo, lipstick, and biodiesel fuel. Since the 1990s, global demand has surged as food manufacturers sought a cheap, stable, high-yield vegetable oil, and the island of Borneo, shared by Indonesia, Malaysia, and Brunei, became the center of palm oil expansion because its equatorial climate is ideal for oil palm, and vast areas of lowland forest were available at low cost. The scale of change is enormous. Borneo has lost approximately 50% of its forest cover since 1950. Between 1985 and 2001 alone, 5.4 million hectares of old-growth forest were destroyed, much of it converted to oil palm monoculture. After 25 to 30 years of production, the land is often too degraded to recover as forest or even as productive farmland. The effects in Borneo. On biodiversity, the Bornean orang-utan population has declined by over 50% since 1999 due to habitat loss. The species is now classified as critically endangered. The pygmy elephant and proboscis monkey are also under severe pressure. On carbon and climate, Borneo's peat swamp forests store carbon not just in trees but in deep peat layers up to 20 meters thick, representing thousands of years of accumulated carbon. When these peat forests are burned, as they regularly are during land clearing, the long-stored carbon is released rapidly. This makes Indonesia one of the world's largest seal cone emitters in major fire years. On haze and the Singapore connection, the burning of forests in Borneo and neighboring Sumatra creates annual haze events, severe air quality crises that spread across the entire region, affecting Malaysia, Singapore, and Indonesia. Singapore's Pollution Standards Index has reached extremely hazardous levels, above 500, during the worst haze years. If you have ever been told not to go outside because of the haze, that is a direct consequence of deforestation and burning in Borneo and Sumatra. On indigenous peoples, Dayak communities have been displaced from ancestral lands without consent or compensation. Their forest, their food, their medicine, their home, cleared for palm oil. Let us compare the two case studies side by side. The primary cause of deforestation differs. The Amazon is driven mainly by cattle ranching and soya farming. Borneo is driven primarily by palm oil cultivation. The forest loss differs. Amazon has lost 17 to 20%. Borneo has lost approximately 50% since 1950. The iconic biodiversity impact differs. Amazon, jaguar, giant otter, harpy eagle, Borneo, the orang-utan, down over 50% since 1999. The people impacts differ in their details. 300+ indigenous groups in the Amazon, Dayak communities in Borneo, and the special risks differ. The Amazon faces a tipping point at 20 to 25% loss. Borneo produces the annual haze that directly affects Singapore and the wider region. But what they share is more important. Agricultural expansion driven by global consumer demand is the primary driver in both. Indigenous peoples lose land and cultural identity in both. Both are global climate issues, not just local ones. Practice. Pause 2. Pause the video now. WAQ3, 2 marks, explain why deforestation leads to soil erosion. You need 2 steps, 1 mark each. Step 1 is about what happens to the soil when trees are removed. Step 2 is about what happens when rain then falls on that exposed soil and what the result is. Write your full 2-step answer before you unpause. When you are ready, unpause for the model answer. Model answer for WAQ3. Mark 1. Without tree roots to hold the soil particles together and anchor the topsoil in place, the thin layer of nutrient-rich topsoil, only 5 to 10 centimeters deep, is left exposed and unprotected. Mark 2. When heavy equatorial rainfall hits the bare soil directly, it dislodges and washes away the topsoil as surface runoff, leaving behind infertile, compacted subsoil that cannot support crops or forest regeneration. Check yours now. 4 things to verify. Did you mention the role of roots specifically, not just trees are gone? Did you give the depth of the topsoil, 5 to 10 centimeters? Did you describe the mechanism of erosion? Rain dislodges and washes away the topsoil? And did you state the consequence? Infertile subsoil cannot support regrowth. If any of those 4 elements is missing, that is what to add the next time. 4 mistakes fixed and 5 things to remember. Mistakes. First, vague causes. Name the specific cause, not just people cut down trees. Second, effect without mechanism. Always explain how, not just what. Third, 1 water cycle point for 3 marks. You need 3 distinct mechanisms. Fourth, assuming deforestation can be reversed easily. The feedback loop means damage becomes self-accelerating and, past the tipping point, irreversible. 5 things to remember. 1. 4 causes: commercial logging, agricultural expansion, mining, settlement, and infrastructure. 2. 5 effects: biodiversity, water cycle, soil erosion, carbon and climate, indigenous peoples. 3. The feedback loop, 5 steps, self-accelerating. 4. Amazon. Cattle and soya are the main drivers, tipping point at 20 to 25%. 5. Borneo. Palm oil, orang-utan, declined by over 50%. Haze directly affects Singapore. What to do next? Step 1. Download the free learning pack. It has the viewing guide, exit ticket, revision note, cause-effect table, worksheet, and the WA practice set. Step 2. Complete the worksheet. Section A asks you to arrange the 8 stages of the deforestation chain in the correct order. Section B asks you to explain each stage in 1 sentence. Section C asks you to describe the feedback loop. Section D asks you to link to a named case study. Step 3. Attempt the WA practice set without notes. All 3 questions, timed, 15 minutes, 7 marks. Step 4. When you have checked your answers, try the evaluation question. Deforestation is only a local problem. It does not affect countries far away. Use the haze, the flying rivers, and the carbon figures to build your argument. Step 5. Watch video 14. Management of tropical rainforests, which teaches the strategies that exist to protect what remains.